What were the best value contracts in free agency? We're going to give our picks at every position today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins, and we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Joe, do you have a glass this morning? A beverage of some kind?
I
want you to hold it up and pretend to pull the fluid that we poured out yesterday for Xavier Restrepo back into the cup. Apparently he had a hamstring.
Yeah, he wanted to make sure everybody knew there were some things
Apparently
going on
he had a hamstring.
Couple different tweets since, one thing, then the next. First it was, hey, we're just get back to real football, no stopwatches. Now he's like, I hate to do this, but I got to tell you, I tweaked my hamstring.
No excuses, but I do have an excuse.
Yeah.
The dream continues.
We're back in.
We're back in after pouring one out for Restrepo. But Restrepo's going to have to wait probably yesterday was, I guess today's 1 month from day 3. Saturday, April 26th is day 3. So Restrepo will at most have to wait a month to find out what his new NFL team is. But the players we're talking about today already know who their next NFL team is, Joe.
That's exactly right. Our objective today is to go position by position, and Kyle and I are going to share our favorite value contract that was agreed to in free agency at every single position. And so had a fun time going through, making my picks, and I'm excited to kind of see where we both land on these.
Yeah, not easy at every spot. So let's dive in because we're going to do the thing and go through every position in the league. And anytime Joe and I try to do league-wide shows, and we've got about a 33-minute budget, we push it. So we're going to try not to push it. We're going to start with quarterbacks. And I guess the question I have for you is your value contract here at quarterback that of a starter or of a potential backup?
Well, he's now a backup. Maybe yesterday he wasn't, but now he's probably the backup.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I did
James Winston deal.
I did Jameis Winston, 2 years, $8 million with the Giants. And I didn't love a lot of the deals that were handed out at quarterback. But what I will say is that for Jameis to come in at 2 years at an APY of 4 per, when you saw Mariota, Brissett, Heineke, and Wilson all go for like 6 to 8, I thought that was a pretty good value for a team that needed, I think, a decent floor there at that spot.
I had Andy Dalton, who also went 2 for 8 as my favorite value, just because I like Dalton as an option better than Jameis Winston. Now, Dalton technically didn't hit the open market, but he has a new contract and had his contract expired. He was set to be a free agent, so I included him. Is that
I'm glad you did, because I have one of those as well that didn't actually change teams. So
great.
Only one though.
So Dalton on an expiring contract, signing a new 2-year $8 million at $4 million APY per, and you alluded to some of the other names in upper stratospheres of APYs that include Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson got 6 apiece.
Yeah.
Mariota got 8, Brissett at 6.25. I think Andy Dalton's a better option than most of those guys, if not all of those guys, and potentially half the cost.
I think we brought the right 2 names to the table here. Good call on Dalton. I like that one.
Feel we did a good job there. Now, what about running back?
All right, here's my one player that didn't actually switch teams.
Okay.
I'm going with Ty Johnson. He comes back to the Bills at 2 years, $4 million. This is a really good third down back. He's got a good chemistry with Josh Allen in the passing game. He's the Bills' pass blocker. He keeps James Cook off the fields on passing downs, gives you kick return ability. I mean, what more can you ask for in your RB3 than Ty Johnson? He comes in at 2 years, $4 million. He can run inside, outside, got some physicality, got some juice. I think it's a great deal.
I really like the Elijah Mitchell deal with Kansas City, leaving San Francisco for 2.5. 27-year-old back. Obviously, durability's kind of been a thing there. But if you're telling me you could sign Elijah Mitchell for 2.5, or you could sign Najee Harris for 5.25, a couple of new AFC West running backs.
Yeah.
Give me Mitchell for half the cost. I think he's better on passing downs. And I think there's some upside there, where obviously Pacheco had his own injuries this past year.
Yeah. I had an honorable mention of Rico Dowdle going for 1 year, 2.75 to Carolina.
So
I had 1,000 yards last year for
Dallas. He was on my short list as well, but I talked myself out of it because of what they're paying Chuba.
Yeah, it's weird, right? The whole thing's weird there.
Yeah,
and Jonathan Brooks got hurt again, right? Boy, that's tough.
That's a really awkward situation, but man, Chuba got a big bag, and
yeah,
now we got another 1,000-yard back in the backfield with Rico. I'm like, in a vacuum, the value there is very good.
Yeah,
I think it's fair call out. We doing fullbacks, or you just want to go to wide receivers?
It's wide receivers.
Okay, thank you. What do you got at wide receivers? Your best value contract?
My favorite value deal at wide receiver is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. He signs with the Miami Dolphins, 2 years with $5.99. I think this is exactly the type of depth receiver you want. He blocks, big time special teams impact, can occasionally make an explosive play in the passing game. Gives a size dynamic in particular for Miami where I think they need it. I think there's a lot of value that they're going to get out of that deal.
That's a Mac Hollins-y.
Sure.
Same subsect of wide receiver, right? With teams and physicality and winning without the ball.
Yes.
But there's a big body down the field element that exists. I can't believe that the terms of this contract came in where it was.
It's a good deal. Especially 2 years to be able to control the player,
Right. So that was my choice as well, where really he has his first year salary is guaranteed, but nothing else after that. But it's hard to imagine him not living up to a contract like this when you consider Tutu Atwell gets $10 million per, and Diami Brown gets $10 million per, and Darius Slayton gets $12 million per, and Hollywood Brown got $7 million after we've been waiting on the stabilization of Hollywood Brown's production, and then he was hurt last year, and Nick Westbrook had 9 touchdowns last year. And
he's on my fantasy team last year. I enjoyed him. We had some big games, man. This is the best quarterback play he's ever going to have, too.
Yeah.
All of his years so far in Tennessee.
So I am with you on Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and I was relieved that you had a Bill before I had a Dolphin, because I knew in the first segment we were going to have me pounding the table for a Dolphins contract. So I was like, I hope he's got a Bill somewhere along the way.
I might have another Dolphin here at some point. So
if there's one thing the Dolphins did in free agency is they shopped on budgets and found good bargains. So that wouldn't surprise me if you do.
Got one more.
Tight end.
Boy, this was tough. This is a tough position, but Tyler Conklin, thank you for signing this 1 year, $3 million deal with the Chargers. That's a functional player, man. It's a functional tight end. I mean, if they want to go get a guy at tight end, certainly go do it. But that's a very functional player. That's, I was like, is there an injury or something I'm not familiar with here to come in and at least give them a floor at the position? I think that's a really good value contract.
So I know this isn't the player he once was, but I'll go with Zach Ertz and his contract and signing back. And he had 650 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. And you get him back on the board, and it was really the same terms as is cheaper than the John Bates contract that Washington also signed a tight end. Oh, by the way, they drafted Ben Sinnott in the second round last year.
There's something about that for Cliff, man. He did it in Arizona as well. He just wants all these tight ends.
Supporting a bunch of skill sets at tight ends. And Sinnott's the guy that kind of blurs the lines between an Ertz and a Bates type skill set. So we'll see if that develops and comes together for him. But I want to get even late stage Zach Ertz back for 6.25 was the APY on the new deal. For the receiving production that he has, I'm sitting here looking at Luke Farrell and Tommy Tremble and Austin Hooper all got $5 million or higher, and I'm like, Zach Ertz looks like a pretty good deal right now. So that was the one that I went with.
Yeah. All right, couple good call outs there at tight end. We're getting to the trenches here on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets should not be stressful, and that's where Gametime comes in. making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time Picks is the easiest way to find and buy tickets to live events. The curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concert, comedy, and theater events. You get peace of mind, folks, with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee you can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So how did you classify? We didn't talk about this beforehand. You have offensive line. Do you have tackles and interior? Do you have tackle guard center? How do you have it?
Oh, I have an interior player and a tackle.
Okay, and that worked out well for us because I did it the same way.
Good.
So let's start with offensive tackle. Who do you have? Best value free agency thus far?
I thought the best value is Morgan Moses signing with the Patriots at 3 years, $24 million. $8 million per. I think he's a sufficient level starter that brings a lot of like football character, and I think will be an important foundational piece for like advancing this Patriot situation forward as they have some young talent and a new regime. But I think Morgan Moses will be a kind of a glue guy that can kind of connect things and help set the temperature for what they want to get done there. And I think obviously I thought the Patriots tackle situation was just about as bad as a position group could be last year. So you get a nice floor with a veteran here. I know he's not young and brimming with upside, but there's a stabilization factor that you get with Moses that I think makes a lot of sense for them at $8 million per.
So the contract that I have, I did a little funny business on this one. I'll be honest with you.
All right.
I'm going to come clean. The Braden Smith reworking of his contract was the one that I ended up settling on.
Okay.
It's a adjusted contract that now puts him into a contract year, but he had to sign a new contract. It's 1 year, $8 million in cash for Braden Smith at right tackle amidst the interruption that they had at center and guard, at right guard. And I know they have Bortolini coming in there at center. For Braden Smith to rework his contract and put him from a dollars perspective at $8 million in his age 29 season. And I know he's been banged up the last couple of years and missed some time. The alternative costs here was where I thought it was a good value. Like I'd rather have Braden Smith and Jack Conklin, and Jack Conklin reworked his deal as well. And it was for $9 million. So I think they effectively tore up what was left of his deal to craft a new final year. And I think that value, especially relative to the open market prices that you saw in a lot of places, was a good value.
I think that's a win for Braden Smith as well, because if he's healthy and has the type of year he's capable of, he's now going to hit free agency, you said, after this season, and he'll be in line for every bit of north of 15 per. I mean, maybe I was very conservative there. I think that could push a lot higher based on where some of these other free agent deals are coming in. And certainly, the Colts have drafted a bunch of offensive linemen. I'm guessing there's a pathway that they're looking for to maybe get some of those guys into the lineup.
So that was my offensive tackle choice, was a reworking of a deal.
All right.
On the offensive interior, did you see the terms of the Tevin Jenkins deal?
I have not seen them.
It's about 1 year and just over $3 million.
Good.
I feel like that's a pretty solid value when it's all said and done. Especially relative to Alex Kappa, what he got with the Raiders at 5.5 and really struggled.
Yeah.
So that one being fresh on my mind was one that kind of jumped up to the top of the list for me, was the Tevin Jenkins contract, especially considering, what Jonah Jackson has. His floor's higher as a player, but Jonah Jackson has bigger durability issues than Tevin Jenkins does right now. And you had to give up a draft pick to get Jonah Jackson, and it's
Big
2
deal.
years of guaranteed on 351 or whatever it ended up being.
Yeah.
So Tevin Jenkins at 1 for $3, I was like, I feel like there's a lot of teams that probably should have been in on that dollar amount,
right,
relative to what the rest of the interior offensive line market looked like.
It's a good call out. I went with maybe one of the more confusing deals of the entire free agency period, and that's Josh Myers with the Jets. He signed a 1-year, $2 million deal. And I mean, maybe Josh Myers hasn't been an amazing starter, but I think he's at least a sufficient level starter that has been the starting center for the Packers for the last 3 seasons. That's been a good offensive line collectively. So you get a guy with some upside that's young, that's experienced for that. I mean, if he would have signed,
like they stole him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go crazy here, but if he signed the 330 deal that John Runyon did, would you have been surprised?
I asked you that question. I was like, hey, do you think he gets more than John Runyon? And
right.
We both thought the answer was going to be yes.
And then he gets 1 year too? Like, is there maybe an injury element here that we don't know about based on the way his season ended? It's very confusing.
I have to assume that season-ending injury has a little bit more immediate implications. And that's an assumption on my part. I don't know anything. But it's hard to imagine that's not the case for a player that had that resume as a multi-year starter in Green Bay and can play center and has the build to play guard.
What's up with all these AFC East picks? I got 4 AFC East picks. We've been through 7 positions.
Just the offensive side of the ball, casually,
Needed some work, I guess.
Defensive tackle.
I went with a player staying home here. It's Levi Onwuzurike, signing 1 year, $4 million with the Lions. I know his early career was injuries, but that's not really been the case of late. And I think there's pass rush ability here. They're pretty versatile with him, and Detroit will play a lot of different fronts. And there are times where he'll go out and play. I mean, even as like a 4, come inside, rush interior gaps as well. I think he's a good player that is still ascending. And I think kind of you've invoked a lot of different contracts. When you look at what Kinlaw got or Deshaun Wharton, I mean, it's just this. I wonder if this is what he had to take to stay in Detroit, and he just wanted to stay in Detroit, because I'm stunned that there wasn't a lot more out there for him to get. But every team's or every player's priorities are different. And I think there's a big win for Detroit to get him back on that deal.
Yeah, I have Dallas getting Solomon Thomas for 2 for $6. Now, Dallas is not one of those teams. They don't spend in the deep end of the pool in free agency. They haven't done it in a decade. But Solomon Thomas, really good interior / base end, flexible alignment type of player, who seems to always be in a really valuable piece of a defensive line rotation. And for Dallas, when you consider they lose DeMarcus Lawrence, they have Marshawn Kneeling coming off of a season-ending injury.
Lost Golston.
Lost Golston. I think that's a really big role and opportunity there. And to get it for 2 for $6 on a $3 million APY for Solomon Thomas, I thought was a really good deal for Dallas.
I like it.
The edge group we have.
This is my biggest contract, but I still find a lot of value in it.
Okay.
It's Josh Sweat with the Cardinals. This winds up coming in 4 years, $76.4 million, which is $19.1 million APY. And I'll stop right there because I think that is a value. If you told me that Josh Sweat signed for mid-20s, I would not have been surprised at all. This is, when you look at the practical deal, it's really a 2-year, $40 million deal. Mm-hmm. And so however you want to look at it, I see a lot of value in this because I think a lot of Josh Sweat and the overall skill set, his age, what he's proven to this point, going to a team in Arizona where I feel like I've been talking about needing impact players in the front 7 for a long time. And it's certainly a very clean projection to Jonathan Gannon, who is familiar with Josh Sweat. I thought this was one heck of a deal. Probably one of my favorite overall deals of all of free agency.
I would much rather have Josh Sweat at 19-1 than Danielle Hunter at 35-6. And that's no slight against Danielle Hunter because he's a top 10 edge rusher in football comfortably, right? Yeah. And that's the number in my head that I felt comfortable going to, where like I'm not going to leave anybody out, but he could end up higher on that list than number 10, right? Yeah. But just it's almost half the dollars.
Yeah, right. It's insane. It's insane.
I went with this Hassan Reddick 1 for 14.
It's a great choice. Yeah.
Just because you know what Hassan Reddick was in Philadelphia. You have to imagine it's going to be better in Tampa than it was with the Jets when he clearly didn't get what he wanted. And he had to sit out half the year last year. And now he knows what his situation is coming in instead of getting traded and trying to finesse a new contract. You're going to get a motivated and fresh Hassan Reddick. And that in Tampa with Todd Bowles, with Vita Vea in the middle, and what that means with Kalijah Kancey and potentially lining up next to him, like I think the fit's really great. It's the right kind of short-term 1-year deal for a guy who, again, we're talking, Max Crosby, Daniil Hunter, those guys get 3x in cash on an AAV basis what he's going to get in a 1-year deal in Tampa.
All right. I think we're bringing up the right deals. Good conversation here today on Locked On NFL Scouting that continues on the other side of it as we get to the defensive back 7. Folks, be sure to stick with us.
I would like to confirm we have off-ball linebacker, corner, and safety left.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even have any specialists to bring to the table. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay. You do Ryan Stonehouse. Yeah, I don't know what the terms are of the deal, but
yeah, it doesn't matter.
We can throw another AFC East name in there for you if you want.
Yeah, I got 2 more coming actually in this segment from the AFC East. I think it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional, but
all right. So let's start with off-ball linebacker. Who you got here?
This is the one I don't know the terms of the deal. Maybe you do, but I picked Willie Gay, going to Miami after a good run in Kansas City. He goes to the Saints, and it's kind of you got to play 3 linebackers. They got Warner and Demario Davis there, but Willie Gay's a pretty functional player that I think really highly of Anthony Weaver as the defense coordinator in Miami, and boy, I think that I kind of have a belief that he'll be able to figure out this linebacker mix. Of course, Jordan Brooks is the guy, but between Dotson, who was on my list of players that I thought about for this, and Willie Gay, I think those are really complementary players that bring a lot of different skill sets to the table. And so Willie Gay, he's only 27 years old. He's athletic. He's been one of the better QB spy mirror players. And obviously that's an important part of what Miami's got to get done playing against Josh Allen. I think it's a good deal, and I don't even know what the terms are. He signed 1 year, $3 million with the Saints, and I don't think he did anything last year that would warrant it being more than that. So feels like it's a good deal.
I watched the tape. I was appalled watching the tape how they used him last year.
Kind of like an edge, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a Sam backer on the ball.
Yeah.
Like this. None of this is what. When I watched it, I went back and I watched what his successful reps look like, and then when I watched him at Kansas City, and you mentioned some of the shallow QB spy stuff. Like, man, this is kind of Jalen Walker-y as far as the role, right? You think about Jalen Walker at Georgia and how they rushed a traditional 3, and he's kind of the 4th guy, and sometimes he's off the ball and doesn't go, and sometimes he's on the edge and he kind of drifts into the middle, and then you just use that athleticism, click and close. I couldn't believe that New Orleans, the same group that had no idea how to use Zach Bond, and then Zach leaves and gets a $17 million a year contract playing with Vic as a hybrid type player. I'm like, man, we kind of left some meat on the bone here. It felt like with Willie Gay.
Willie Gay depoy watch?
No, no, absolutely not. As far as the value that I liked, the Packers getting Isaiah McDuffie back. I don't know how frequently you've watched Isaiah.
I'm familiar with him. Yep.
A 2-year deal for $8 million. And he was a guy who kind of came in what was primarily a special teams type guy and has played more snaps defensively in each of his first 4 seasons across his rookie deal as a guy that was a little undersized, but explosive and moves well in space. And you see undersized guys that move well in space. Some of these guys are pushing a lot more than $4 million a season. So
yeah,
the team's value, in addition to he's become and developed into a starting player for them, or starting caliber player if they need him to be. I thought that was a really good value for Green Bay.
He's fun to watch at BC, right? And I'm guessing he's reunited with Jeff Hafley. So they got Edge Cooper, McDuffie and Quay Walker. I mean, is that the rangiest linebacker trio in the league? I think that's probably true, right?
Yeah, it's a good call out. And then obviously they have that safety group to go with it, and that whole core in the middle is versatility and range.
Let's get some corners, baby. Let's give ourselves a chance here on defense.
Right. And McDuffie 26 as well. I'm currently in the process for my draft work in affirming ages for players. I got a couple of guys that I really like that are really high up on my board that are like going to be 24 in their rookie season. And it's like, man, you could be pushing 30 by the time your fifth year option rolls around and it's time for a second contract. And McDuffie's played 4 years in the league. He's 26. So
Darius Alexander and Darian Porter are both going to turn 25 as rookies.
Yeah. There's a couple. It's those. You're used to seeing a lot of fifth-year seniors that played in games in 2020 with the COVID season, but then you got a couple of guys that played in 19 and had a red shirt year and
nuts 6-year guys.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them. We're
kind of coming out of that though, right? Like the COVID year is going to be no longer part of this.
It should be the last of it, unless guys have like an injury red shirt after 2020.
All right, we're almost out of the weeds.
What a great world that we're living in, where we're doing every position. We're through linebackers. There's 26 minutes into the show, and we can afford to have a 90-second monologue talking about COVID eligibility impact.
Listen, I felt like it was okay. I looked at the clock. I felt like that was going to be okay.
Yeah. Let's go to the secondary. Let's go to corners, where league other than the two extensions with J.C. Horn and Derek Stingley, felt like the league showed a lot of restraint at the corner market when you consider Adebo got 18, Byron Murphy got 18, Javarius Ward got 18, Carlton Davis got 18, DJ Reed gets 16. I'm surprised nobody broke through that ceiling. And the best deal out of that group of the top of market guys is probably Adebo, just because he's 26.
Yep, I agree.
Carlton Davis, Javarius Ward are 29, and Byron Murphy is going to be age 27 season.
So did you tell us your pick within that,
or
is that okay?
No? I just wanted to set the table for the market.
I thought about Adebo because of exactly what you just outlined, but I went with Isaiah Rodgers. Signs 2 years, $11 million with the Vikings, and Isaiah Rodgers kind of had a goofy start to his career with the gambling suspension. When he's on the field, he's a good player, and I thought Minnesota was kind of interesting with how they were interchangeable with a lot of their corners. Last year, like just playing a lot of different players, not necessarily like full-time guys. And I think Isaiah Rodgers comes into this defense with a ton of man coverage ability and kind of helps them get back to how they want to. I think they want to match up a little bit and play matchups. And I think Isaiah Rodgers is obviously a really dynamic athlete that's not very big, but I think the coverage production has been really, really good. And I think he'll thrive there with Flores. And I mean, 2 years, $11 million is really good money for, I think, what he can give that defense. Yeah.
I took the coward's way out here. I went with a restricted free agent tender. Kader Kohu.
Okay.
Dolphins going to be fourth-year corner, was on a restricted free agent tender. They opted not to go for. He's an undrafted free agent, right? So there is no original round tender option for him. It's either right of first refusal, which was 3.26, or you were going to go with the second round tender cost, which was a little over 5. And when you consider, I mean, he's had 3 different defensive coordinators. He's played inside. He's played outside. He's played very man heavy. He's played in at least 15 games and played in at least 66% of the snaps defensively in his first 3 seasons in the league as a guy that excels in man coverage. His 26 passes defensed and 3 interceptions in 3 seasons. There's ups and downs. I thought he really played well in the past 6-8 weeks of the regular season last year, where it kind of really came in when he was playing in Weaver's defense. To take the restricted free agent tender, and I think they took a bit of a risk by not doing the second round tender, because there's no draft pick compensation that has to go if a team would have signed him with right of first refusal. So to get that kind of play volume as an undrafted free agent after 3 years at $3.26 million, I think is a really good value.
Good call out. Or is he going to play inside or outside, right?
We'll find out come draft night. I think that's, are they going to take Jahdae Barron, or Jahdae Barron's one of those guys. He could be 24 by December of his rookie deal. We thought 5th-year option, age 29 season, right? But do you take Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson? Do they go with a nickel guy a little later? Do they get a third safety guy and play 3 safety? Like it's a really interesting group, but he's capable of playing both.
Yeah.
Safety.
All right. I went with Derek Forrest. Signed a 1-year, $1.3 million deal with the Bills. Excuse me. And hey, listen, I went back and checked the records. You and I both had Derek Forrest scored as a sufficient level starter going into this past season. And I think he just kind of got lost in the transition because in 2022, got a chance to start, and I thought he played extremely well. And the very low-cost deal with Sean McDermott, who has just an off-the-charts resume with safety, dating back to, of course, Buffalo with Poyer and Hyde, but Carolina with like Mike Mitchell or Kirk Coleman or Trey Boston, or go back to Philadelphia and Quentin Michael didn't do anything for 3 years. And he's a Pro Bowler in 1 year with Sean McDermott. He's just got a knack for these safeties. And I there's a piece of me that's just very curious when you take the entire package with Forrest and 5th round pick that kind of earned an opportunity. He's got a really good athletic profile. He's really versatile and physical. I wonder, it's like, there's a piece of me that's very curious about, what type of opportunity does he get? What does he do with it? And like, what can he develop into for this defense on basically a minimum contract here. So I was pretty excited about that one.
He is one of a number of contracts that were put through this year that are of the veteran salary benefit classification, where his cap hit is actually lower than the cash that he's receiving as well. And that's some fine print put into the CBA meant to kind of incentivizing and give teams more opportunities this time of year to put vested veteran players on their contracts that aren't or on their books that aren't big money players, instead of just sitting here and holding out and then putting a bunch of undrafted free agents and rookie contracts on to fill out the rest of their roster. So it allows you to put veterans and they get marginally more cash, but they stay on your books for the equivalence of minimum salaries.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the league.
It is a very healthy thing for the middle class, and I don't want to say lower class, because like he could end up being an impactful player, right? Mm-hmm. But he just hadn't earned that big contract yet. And some of those guys just need that added incentive to be available and be on the field. And I took the coward's way out here as well, Joe. I went with our Darius Washington, another restricted free agent.
Yeah.
Very good safety player for Baltimore. That's also $3.26 million on a 1-year restricted free agent tender.
The defense changed when he got on the field last year. Yeah.
And for that cost, relative to guys that are getting 2-3 times that amount of money, it's a great value for Baltimore, and good on those teams that had those restricted free agents who took advantage of the tools at their disposal.
We did it.
That's going to do it. We made it all the way through. That's going to do it for us here today on Locked On NFL Scouting. Joe, we're doing defensive tackles tomorrow.
Yep.
How deep we going?
About, I guess, 14 again, 14, 15, something like that.
Per dozen? Want to do top dozen?
Top dozen? Yeah, sounds good.
Great. So that's what we have tomorrow. You have that to look forward to. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, keep it locked in. You're on the Locked On Network. It's all your teams every day. We appreciate you guys as always. Check on the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We're out of here.